Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
We have to rise above challenges and find strength in the midst of adversity.
We are in a battle of good versus evil.
Satan is the father of confusion.
I don't care what they do to me. I'm going to keep calling them out.
They're berserk trying to disarm Americans, and we need to push back.
I'm glad you're fighting for America.
There's always hope.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.
We have a very special all-star, Shemane Nugent. Welcome into the locker room. How are we doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Brett? Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And I know live TV, hey, we hustle when we go, and you know what it's like being on the road. You don't even know what town you wake up on. And it's amazing what you and your precious husband have doing through the world of music and influence. And I'm so excited, Shemane, to introduce you to a very, very precious locker room. I'm fully aware that you've never heard of Brett Bowl, nicknamed Ohio Brett, but with my sports background, Shemane, it's been a blessing that I actually had a dad who was an athletic director at Ohio State for many years as an assistant, got his first head coaching job at the University of Toledo, the mighty Rockets, Toledo Rockets, and he hired Nick Saban to his first ever head coaching job. And Nick Saban went on to be the greatest all-time college coach ever. Nobody won more college national championship than Nick Saban and his precious wife. You would love Miss Terry if you guys haven't met yet, but they just retired because they're sick and tired of all the politics in college sports. They're paying the kids. I'm all about paying the kids, but they're transferring and there's no rules. There's no structure. Kind of sounds like those weasel career politicians on both sides, but I bring guests into the locker room. And Shemane, I am so excited. Thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to come into the locker room today. And we have a whole audience that is sitting up straight in the locker room and can't wait to hear what you have to say today.
Well, thank you again. And I know a little bit about locker rooms. I actually was a state champion swimmer 2 times.
Come on. You like getting up early in the morning? You swimmers are crazy.
I know, right? Before and at 2 days before and after school in high school. And then I started out when I was 7. And actually, this is way before your time, Brett, but I swam in the 1970s, and our YMCA, Macomb Marlins YMCA swim team in Macomb, Michigan, we had an exhibition against the Russian girls team in 1972 or 3 or 4, one of those. We beat them. So I have spent a lot of time in sports. I used to race motocross. I did gymnastics. I played basketball. So yeah, I know my way around the locker room a little bit.
I love it.
I think it's so wonderful that, you know, when you look at people like what you're doing, you understand the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. But one of the great things that I found out, I discovered as a parent, was I always had my son in sports. I wanted to make sure that he understood that it wasn't just me and my husband Ted preaching to him about do your chores, do your studies, you know, make sure you do your homework, clean up your room. The coaches are key. They're saying exactly what the parents are, only in a different way.
Isn't that great? And I love the fact that being blessed to be from that state of Ohio, we love that state up north. And yes, there's rivalries between the Ohio State Buckeyes and that team out of Ann Arbor.
I know you keep saying that. I know which
one.
I
know. Hey, don't get mad at me. I know you got a lot of fans all over, but that maize and blue is very special. I'm partial to the green, and go green, go white in Michigan State. But the Toledo Rockets and the Ohio State Buckeyes, that's what's great about the Michigan Wolverines and Ohio State Buckeyes coming together, because yes, they want to beat each other's brains out in football, but you know what? We're the first ones that'll stand up if you mess with the cheerleaders or the water boy. And that's what's happening in America today, is they're messing with our children. They're lying to us, saying there's anything else but boy or girl. They are confusing our children. They're poisoning the water supply. Is there any career politician on either side that actually cares about us at the grassroots level. And on this interview right now, if you're watching it, whether it's on Brighteon.com or the Patriot Party News, please look at the ticker below. We're going to go to Shemane's website here in a minute. But you know the rules when you come into the locker room on my show. We're going to listen to amazing leaders. Please visit ShemaneNugent.rocks. ShemaneNugent.rocks. We're going to go out there in a little bit. I'm going to encourage you to buy books and support and pray over her. And if there's a donate button, don't tell me that you can't donate at your easy amount. I'm a fundraiser by trade, Shemane, and I love encouraging our audiences that if you believe in one of my guests, buy their books, invite them to speak in your town. Go click donate at an easy amount. I'm fully aware everybody's easy amount's a little bit different. $10, 20, 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000 or more. We have to take action because we don't have Lucifer-led evil like George Soros funding us and going and causing chaos. We on this side, we actually will respect their opinion, even though we don't agree, but they don't give that right to us. They don't even want to hear our opinions. They want to shout us down. So Shemane, thank you so much for what you and your precious husband are doing to stand for truth. But you have a precious locker room right now. Our audience is so excited because you guys are a famous couple, but I have a passion for the women in our lives. Every athlete, every rock star, any man that has any real man blood in him wants to show off for the women in our lives, but we want to do it the right way. But we're so confused because I got a chance to go to all 50 states in 2022, Shemane. We did it again in 2023. I'm going for 3 years in a row. I do the small little things. I meet in secret in a parking lot, a cigar shop, a church. I'll go speak to a high school football team. But I was a little confused that the mama bears were everywhere in 2022 and 2023. Where are the real men? What's your message for the men in America?
You're right. It's a shame, but we've been gaslit into believing that there is something called toxic masculinity when it's not. And we've been told by mainstream media and the, elites that are running this world, not just this country, but this world. A lot of people, unfortunately, are still believing what they see on the news and read in newspapers. And you and I, Brent, and so many others know that that's not true. And like you've always said, I've been listening to you preach about reading the Bible, opening the Bible. If you don't know what to do in life, it's every day when I open the Bible randomly. Sometimes I'll do a specific Bible study, but sometimes I'll just randomly open. I'll say a little prayer and ask God to show me what I need to hear. And 100 times, 100% of the time, I just got goosebumps. It's exactly what I need to hear. And unfortunately, our men have been led astray and they've been beat down by especially white men. It's unfortunate because we need men in our lives, but we know from history what's happened is that they were trying to separate. Ephesians 6:12-18 talks about we don't wrestle against each other, against flesh and blood, but against the rulers of principalities of this dark world, against spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenlies. And if you don't see that there is a war of good versus evil right now, and you said it yourself, Brett, that you cannot be a Christian and be on the left. I don't understand it. We've lost, America's lost its soul. A lot of people have been brainwashed into I have a story for you. How long is this interview? Can I tell a story?
Oh, you got time. This locker room, I've been waiting for this one for a long time.
Okay, this is when it all started. I'm 62 years old. My son, and like I said, I was a state champion swimmer when I was younger. When my son was growing up, I mentioned I put him in just about every sport I could. And of course, you guessed it, I put him in swimming. Well, I also gave him some tips, right? Of course, who wouldn't? If you are very well versed in a sport or moderately well like I was, I certainly wasn't the best, but I had some knowledge about swimming. So I gave him some tips. And when he was 7 years old, I put him in a novice swim meet. And what they do in a novice swim meet, they spend a little bit extra time. They let the kids get up on the starting block and they say, okay, now the starter is going to shoot the starter pistol. You're going to hear it. They just take time. And Rocco knew all that. My son's name is Rocco, and I coached him pretty darn well. He did amazing. He won. There's absolutely no question he won. Like he was, I think the second person was 20 yards behind him. It was incredible. So we go, Brett, to pick up his trophy, and we see first place, Rocco Nugent. Second place, third place, fourth place. Everybody else had a trophy except for Rocco. And I thought, well, surely, he didn't cheat. He didn't, there are kids that have done that in the past, but he didn't do that. And I asked the lady who was behind giving the trophies out, and I said, I think there's a problem here. My son didn't get his trophy. It says first place Rocco Nugent, and there's no trophy. And she goes, yeah, could you come with me? And I'm thinking, what is going on? So little Rocco and I go to this office at a YMCA. I won't say the city, but it wasn't Macomb. It wasn't in Michigan, or it was in Michigan, but the other side of the state, put it that way. So we go into this office with this director of the YMCA and said, well, the problem was, and you're not going to believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth, but this is how wokeness started. And remember, this was 1997. So he said, the problem is Rocco swam too fast and it wasn't fair to the other kids. I'm not kidding you.
Insane world.
I am not kidding you. So rather than acknowledge Rocco's expertise in swimming at a young age and buoy his spirits, they crushed his spirits, and they said, well, it wasn't fair to the other kids. They felt bad because Rocco swam so fast, it made him feel really bad. And, I have to say, and I've apologized to Rocco, I wish I had that to live over again, because it wouldn't have ended the same way. I ended up caving. I didn't know how to discuss that. I just thought, this is wild. This is insane. And I said, okay, what are you going to give him? Here he is right here. He's 7 years old. He obviously did great. I am not kidding you. This guy had a stack of comic books on his desk. He turned the comic books around and he put them towards Rocco, and he said, well, he can have the comic books. I'm not kidding you. So again, I've learned so much through all these little situations in my life. And I honestly believe I was a people pleaser. Yeah. I didn't want to upset people. I wanted to go along to get along. And now if you know a little bit about my husband, he doesn't do that. I've learned a lot from seeing him. When we first met 35 years ago, people told him he would go into a radio station, which that's how we met. I was a traffic reporter at a rock and roll radio station in Detroit. I knew nothing about rock and roll. Honestly, I couldn't have told you one song that he did. I will tell you, he knows this. This is not a secret. I used to listen to Donna Summer.
Love it.
True. Anyways, back then when he would go and do radio interviews, his management at the time said, well, do this radio interview to promote your upcoming concert, because that's how the word got out. There's no social media, obviously, back then in the 80s and 90s. But they asked him not to talk about guns and not to talk about hunting. And he said, well, I can't do that. That's part of my life.
Yes.
And he defied it every step of the way. And he's fought it. I honestly believe it's why he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But Madonna is.
Yes.
Seriously, Madonna's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Ted Nugent isn't.
Open Lucifer worship versus a man who loves his neighbor, black or white.
Yeah.
Democrat or Republican. The thing I love about your husband, before I ever saw him in concert, and I've been blessed to see Uncle Ted a few times, but I read his books and I'm like, come on, there's no way. These books need to be in every single public school curriculum, every single homeschool curriculum, because it was simply truth. And here's a man that after reading his books, wait a minute, he took the time and effort and energy to go know his local politicians, know his local sheriffs, get educated. How great was that with somebody, no matter what walk of life? Obviously, he's a very famous, talented musician, but he took effort and energy So many men out there are so lazy and slothful, they won't even get off the bench and into the game for their families first and their communities. So we look back after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in America, how the heck did we get into this? And so please let your husband know I appreciate his books first, his amazing music, and his stand, not just for people who vote right, but for left as well, because it's open Lucifer worship on the left. That's why I'm not picking on my buddies. I'm fully aware in every locker room, I knew that they were from Detroit or Flint, Michigan, or Chicago or Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland. I'm fully aware that historically that they voted Democrat. But to be honest with you, Shemane, I never asked one of my buddies that I played college football with who they voted for. We could care less, because all we cared about, to be honest, was dating the pretty girls and winning ball games. Academics was a distant third, but we had so much fun. But now I see it. I see it now that we are uniting, Shemane, at the local level. God's given me the gift of actually going. I'm small time. I didn't play at Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame or in the NFL. I was a walk-on. I was a servant. My dad was the athletic director, so I was happy to be on the team. But I was on the team and I knew my role. But I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Wait a minute. We're getting together at the local level, but they're looking at us and we're looking at them and saying, what the frick? We've been lied to.
Yeah.
The Democrats lied to us. The Republican lies to us. So we're going to peacefully, everything we do is peaceful. We're going to peacefully non-comply. And that's what I see happening. That's why everybody loves your husband. Everybody loves you. That's why the policies of Donald Trump, everybody loved, the blacks and the whites. And one of my highlights in 2016, my absolute highlight that election year, was Trump made a late decision to take that plane to that state up north. And I stayed up late. And when your stud husband, I think he played Fred Bear, I was in tears because I had so much hope for America. And then Lucifer just keeps going. But Shemane, I do want to take my audience out because everybody's heard of you and your husband, but I want to make sure that for those few who haven't, I want to go out to your website and you explain what they will find there. I want people to buy every book, invite you to town, pray over you, and donate. So let's go out to your website and you can let us know what we'll find there.
Well, I'm actually in the process of redoing my website, and I'm
Okay.
going to be showing you in the next, it'll be done in a week or two, but I'm going to be showing you all of the guests that I've had on my Faith and Freedom show that's on Real America's Voice. I got banned on Twitter. Even with Elon, I only got reinstated a couple months ago, but down below, you're going to be able to see some of the books I've written. I've written a book about toxic mold. That's part of my story. It's part of why I became a fighter. I got sick and almost died. And I want to share that with you so you don't have to go through. And Brett, you would be happy about this because I actually have a chapter in my book. It's called Killer House, about spiritual warfare. I believe that a lot of the illnesses that we endure are spiritual warfare. Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's exactly what he's doing. So I'm proud of my show, Faith and Freedom on Real America's Voice. I have guests like Don Trump Jr., Kash Patel, Laura Trump, of course, my husband, and somebody else that you know. I've had Juan O'Savin on a few times, and so many other people. But I also have a couple of programs that, if you look at, I think it's free. Well, there's free resources, but books you can see, and about. I have to work on this, but I have, maybe go up to the top. Oh, that is the top. I've got a couple of programs that you can do in the comfort of your own home. I've been a fitness instructor for 44 years. I've been teaching everything from step to spinning to slide and Zumba. I was an international fitness presenter for Zumba, and I trained instructors in Australia, London, Paris, and probably every state. And so I know that it's, especially during COVID, a lot of people were, or whatever it was, and it's an election year, so there's another one of those things coming.
Yes.
But people wanted to stay home, and I get it. It's a lot easier to stay home and get a great workouts. I do a lot of different workouts, and you can find those programs on my website, and also my book, Killer House. And I've written a couple other books. Ted and I wrote a book together that became a New York Times bestseller, which was called Kill It and Grill It. And in fact, I am about to go bow hunting as soon as I'm done here with you.
Hey, aim small, miss small. But wait a minute. You'll get a medal if you don't hit the target, but you come close. But the guys that actually practice every single day and they hit that target, they get a comic book as their award.
Unbelievable.
This is crazy.
Unbelievable. And that's where it started. And you're absolutely right. I heard you a few minutes ago talk about we've been apathetic. And I'll admit, I was there. I did that with my son. And I've learned, do not try and pull that again on me, because it's not going to happen. And when I see, and again, my book, Killer House, is about our experience of losing our home that was once featured on MTV Cribs to toxic mold. We never saw anything. It was between the walls. We just kept getting sicker and sicker. And at 40 years of age, I thought I was having a heart attack. I had debilitating migraines. So I talk about our whole story, how Ted and I and Rocco all got sick and nearly died. And I don't want that to happen to you and your audience. We need to be healthy, Brett. We need to be strong so that when God does say, we all want to be on that front line, and we are. You are. And everybody watching the show, you're on the front line, but you got to be healthy. And I'll give you some tips that you might not think about that could be causing you headaches, or who wants flu-like symptoms these days? Nobody. So I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to get healthier and happier.
Well, I tell you what, there's so many cross-pollinating. I'm so thankful for Juan O'Savin, because I had never heard of Juan, and he put me in the game with a Zoom call August 9th, 2021. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny was the MC. I gave the little pep talk prayer, and I talked about, potentially college football and how hopefully some of these coaches weren't going to let them you're not going to put a mask on my team. You're not going to put a shot in my players, but they didn't. They caved. They listened to the lies of the pharmaceuticals who paid off the team doctors, paid off the university presidents. Our colleges are in disarray. I have hope, though, that we will peacefully non-comply, get educated by watching your shows. But there's so many great doctors out there that Juan O'Savin, through him and through Brighteon and PPN, I got to meet. Sherry Tenpenny is a hero. Dr. Judy Mikovits and Dr. Len Lafferty, and so many great doctors out there that are getting truth out there, but they're being attacked because it's outside of the sorcery of the pharmaceutical worlds. And Shemane, that's what's so great about sports and music. Sports and music, everybody can enjoy the beautiful music and the sports teams, but we have to get the truth out there, and the truth stands on its own. And even though I'm a seed planter for Jesus Christ in all 50 states, I'm not a Bible thumper. Hey, I can have fun. Don't get mad at me if I just encourage you to read the Bible.
Right.
But that takes effort and energy. Now let's go to a Ted Nugent concert, or let's go watch the Ohio State Buckeyes pound Michigan State,
but
or whoever.
If you go to a Ted Nugent concert, you pretty much know which side of the fence he's on.
But that's okay. Everybody should be welcome. He's allowed to have that opinion. It should be celebrated. Yeah. He does not pick, in my opinion, he doesn't pick on someone that has the opposite view. He just knows they're openly lost. They don't care about the policies. That's not our fault. But unfortunately, Scripture also declares, Scripture says that the love of money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. So we've seen that happen with the true love of money or power or position. But we've also, many of us love law enforcement. Most law enforcement they truly trying to do a good job. But some of them look the other way, and they wouldn't hesitate at all of tasing or shooting me if I wouldn't leave a hospital because my precious daughter's in there and I'm not putting a mask on or taking a shot. They would have no problem putting a bullet in me or tase me. Hey, bro, just doing my job. I got to get my money. I got to go get my paycheck 2 times a month. Nurses did it. Doctors did it. They murdered people, remdesivir, the ventilators. So we just have to keep getting truth out there. And Shemane, that's why I love what you're doing. One of the cool things that has happened to me recently is that I got noticed by another business guy that I think you may know, Nick Logan with Cornerstone Credit Card Processing, and he's the owner of the Hula Bowl. You probably don't know what the Hula Bowl is, but I do.
Heard of it.
It's a college football all-star game. For 70 years, Shemane, they've had the college football all-star game, the Hula Bowl. It used to be played in Hawaii, but that stadium's fallen apart. So he moved it to Orlando. So he just partnered with me, and I'm a little excited to come on board as the director of special projects and official scout. So I'll help with fundraising. Who knows? Maybe we'll add a concert experience in future years, because I know this, Shemane. One thing I've seen going to all 50 states, I know this. The aloha spirit breathes in all 50 states. What is that aloha spirit? It's the truth. The truth breathes in all 50 states. Evil doesn't want that truth out. So your husband and you are getting truth out there with your interviews, with your books, with just your example. Because Shemane, I believe there's going to be some moms that watch this interview and they say, wait a minute, I'm going to be tested just like you and your son, and they will stand up because they watched, and they will learn from your great example.
Well, not only that, thank you, but it's also, we learn from our mistakes. And sometimes we don't get to make different choices unless we've been through the ringer, so to speak, and we've been up and down that roller coaster of life. You know, nobody gets out of this life unscathed. And now more than ever, each and every one of us are tasked with standing up to unrighteous behavior, unlawful dictators that are taking, you know, it's funny, everything the left says the right's doing, that's exactly their playbook. And so many of us can see that now. The Bible says not everyone has eyes to see or ears to hear, and that's what's happening. So I want to tell you one other thing. When I've been teaching group fitness for 44 years, like I said, but I remember I was teaching Zumba back in 2016 and for a long time. And I'll never forget, I had a group of women coming into my class. My classes were packed. I had 50. One time I had over 120 people in my class. I had to stop counting. But I had a group of women, African-American women, who came in and they had Obama t-shirts on. What did I do, Brett? Come on in, let's all dance. And we had a blast. The elites, like I said, the media are trying to divide us. We cannot let that happen.
Yes.
If you saw an accident, if anyone in your audience saw an accident, I'll bet you $10 they'd probably pull over to try and help whatever person, whoever, whatever race, whatever creed, whatever. You're not going to stop and go, are you Democrat or Republican? But we've got to stop watching mainstream media. How is it possible, Brett? Can you riddle me this, Batman? How is it possible that Joe Biden he was a superstar? There was no problem with his mental capacity one day, and overnight, after the debate, all of a sudden, you got to go, Joe. And Kamala Harris couldn't get a vote if her life depended on it. Now everybody loves her. Can you not see what is going on? And it's going to be interesting this week to find out what really happens at the DNC. But I think a lot of people's eyes will be opened, and I hope and pray that they will.
Shemane, I couldn't agree more. And I stand in total agreement with you, because what you just modeled, they would never do that for us. If they brought Trump shirts, or every time they were attacking us, they were stabbing guys, hitting them in the back just because of a hat. They never asked them to articulate an opinion. They attacked. So we, on this locker room, I hope you heard what Shemane just modeled for us. That's the example. We need to have composure. We need to invite them in, get in conversations. And that's what's amazing about the suburbs, is everybody knows the dog's name. Oh, the black lab, that's Bella. Oh, the golden retriever, that's Brooklyn. They don't even know their neighbor's name, but they know their dogs. We need to get off the bench, into the game, get to know your neighbors, respect their opinion, whichever way it is. You are allowed to vote whichever way you want to vote, but let's get involved with our neighbor, because evil tries to divide in every single way. And we know that we're uniting with that frequency of good, because this is good versus evil. It is pure evil out there that poisons the food supply, that says that we need to have a whistle in schools all over America where a kid blows a whistle if a teacher tries to say that there's anything but a boy and a girl. We need to self-report. We should call 911 anytime. These are some things that we can do at the local level. But what happens? Shemane, that takes effort and energy. I'm all for having the 10 commandments back in the schools, but I said, time out. Wait a minute. Isn't that kind of sad that a dad, you're trying to outsource some teacher to know the 10 commandments? Hey, why don't you in private let your wife and your kids know what the 10 commandments are, and let alone try to obey them? You don't have to wait till school does it or some weasel pastor. I still don't understand the church in America today, where half these loser pastors, they don't even know scripture. They buy their sermons online. It's nothing but a cash cow for them because they don't have to go work in the factory. I'm not being hard on all pastors, but there are a few good ones out there. But Shemane, and I'm the guy that's out there encouraging everybody to read the Bible, but with sports and with music, don't get mad that we're having more fun than anybody just getting truth out there. And I'll give you the closing segment. We got time for one little segment. Shemane, it's been an honor to get to know you. And through the Hula Bowl, our owner is letting me, the Hula Bowl is only 1 week a year. This year, it's January 11th in Orlando, Florida. If you and Ted want to come down, we'll give you field passes. We'll let you throw the football. We'll do whatever. But you know what's great about the Hula Bowl week? It's only 1 week a year. So the owner, Nick Logan, is letting his new hire, Ohio Brett, the director of special projects, I can breathe all 51 weeks a year. We'll be doing activity all over. Golf tournaments, maybe even some concert experiences. We can't afford Ted Nugent or Billy Joel or U2. We'll start small. We'll go local, but you never know if God gets involved, right? But your message for us as a women leader, I believe we will start a Hula Bowl high school all-star program where boys or girls, because there's only boys or girls, they could get nominated, and maybe the categories will be they have a moral compass, or they know what work ethic is, or they have honesty, integrity. And we could have some women series where we bring women leaders like yourself that are business women, that are attorneys, that are doctors, law enforcement, Army, veterans, or maybe the toughest job in the world, that precious stay-at-home mom that does homeschooling.
Yes.
That's the toughest job in the world.
Absolutely.
And we're going to showcase that. And maybe you could be one of our speakers as we do regional events.
Well, that's awfully kind of you. Thank you. I did homeschool Rocco on a couple of different occasions, and I loved it. I really did. I mean, those precious times when you have with your kid, and everything became a life lesson. You know, going to the grocery store, counting how much money you had, how much could you spend on essential goods. No, you can't buy that sticker book because we need to buy eggs. Everything was a lesson. Now my son just turned 34. I can't even believe it. But it's so important for women especially to stand up. And there's so many great women who are speaking out. So many doctors, female doctors, Dr. Lee Merritt, themedicalrebel.com, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, I've had her on my show before. And so many women who are great role models. But I want to encourage your audience. If you're a woman, you're watching this, you be a great role model. And how do you do that? You open the Bible, you pray. Yes, there's the Proverbs 31 woman, but I do believe that it comes from those little moments, those precious moments, those slivers of time when we are spending with our kids or our kids' friends. I remember I was the type of mom where I don't have a problem reining in my son's friends when they were doing something that I didn't, or my grandkids. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I will wait. I'll never forget with my son when he was younger, we'd walk into a building or walk towards a building and I'd stop and I would just wait for him to open the door. He's like, Mom, you can open the door. I'm like, that's not the point. I think and I did this with my grandkids too. And they were like, you get the, okay, Grandma, you get that from them, but it's so important. So I just want to encourage everybody who's watching your show right now, Brent. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting Ohio Brett in his endeavors, because we need to let patriots take the reins, let patriot Christians stand up and speak out. And we've got to put this message at the front line, on the 50-yard line, and we've got to go. The ball is in your court. You've got to run with it, and God's counting on you.
Shemane Nugent, what an honor it is today. I was looking forward to this interview for a long time. Please tell your stud husband that the locker room sends much love. Want to encourage him to keep pressing on for truth, because sometimes he's all alone, but he's never alone. He's got a big, big team behind him, and you, Shemane. Thank you so much for coming on the Ohio Brett Show for God and Country in Sports.
Thank you, Brett. God bless.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.